and welcome to the Light Conversations. I'm delighted to be joined today by medicine woman and sonic alchemist, Amma Sophia Rose. It's wonderful to check in with you. How are you today, and where in the world are you at this time?
I'm wonderful, and I'm here in Kauai, Hawaii, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Amazing. And is that home for you?
Yes, yeah, I'm home. My children live here, my grandchildren, so I'm settled in now here, and started a beautiful goddess temple, and yeah, grounding and really enjoying myself.
Amazing. And have you been there throughout this whole period of lockdown?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I was living in Bali up until October, or actually till August, and I had gotten the clear guidance to ship all my belongings, which I had beautiful statues and art and different things, and I got this really strong guidance I needed to be here and move here completely, and if I didn't get my stuff out of there, that I would be stuck there. And I couldn't really understand like what the goddess was saying to me, and she said, you need to go now. So I rushed. I sold some land I had there. I got everything together and got a container, and I got here in October. I went to Egypt in November, and then boom, this happened.
So that sounds like you are really connected to your intuition and possibly clairvoyancy. Can we talk a bit about intuition, and has that been a guide for you through your life, or is that something you've like cultivated, that connection?
It's been a guide for me through my life. I'm very connected to the crystal mineral kingdom. I'm super connected to the goddess. She walks with me in so many different ways. She sings through me. I help people to connect with her and allow their voices to open and for her to communicate with them. And yeah, it's nature can speak in many different ways, but also our intuition and clairaudience, clairvoyance, clairsentient. I have a lot of my gifts open through just the journey of life. It's just been something that grows over time. But I can remember being 5 years old and having really strong intuition even back then. So it's always been something that I've had. Yeah.
Amazing. And are there ways that would you say that people can, I imagine it's actually part of the work you do is connecting people to that sense of intuition.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's something that not everyone understands. Can you go into maybe how you could help people to find that, connect to that?
Yeah, one of the things is with the sound and the music and the frequency, I like to connect through to the Akashic records. So similar to a whale reads the Akashic records and it sings the heartline tone frequencies around the planet, and it creates a grid. So we all live in this world together, and we're constantly picking up on this extrasensory hearing, intuition, and frequencies. And when we open up our channel to connect between heaven and earth, we just become this divine conduit. We begin to really feel, sense, and see nature in a whole, like not only nature but all of creation in a way that is very direct. It's very directly communicating with us. The thing that I've seen with a lot of people is that they just don't really listen. They have that gut instinct, they have that knowingness, they have the voice that they hear in their head, but the other voices are so much louder. The judge, the skeptic, the part of them that doesn't believe in themselves or in these things, and so they basically just quiet it down. And so what I do in the journeys that I take people on is I help them to return back to the childlike innocence, and we play music, and then we start to go through breath work and work with all different modalities to help them open up the sensitivity again. Because a lot of times, like, people are super sensitive, and it's too much for them to feel everything, to sense everything, to see, especially with their third eye and different things. And so over time, they either stuff it down with food, with sugar, with chemicals, and they start to slowly just close those gateways. And my job is really to help people to feel safe so that they can reopen those channels and start to listen more, and listen to those places that they're not crazy, that they are receiving the messages. It's really funny. Before my awakening, I feel like I was always worried about whatever ever other people would think. They were gonna think I'm crazy. They're gonna think I'm crazy. It was like this whole thing. And now, after awakening, I recognize, well, actually, like, the world is a little bit crazy, and now it's like considering that when you can see versus when you cannot see, you begin to recognize not that others are crazy, but they just can't see what you can see. So of course they're not going to be able to understand. And then you just kind of accept that. You just accept that they're not there yet. They're not able to see from that perception because their lens or their scope may be a little bit cloudy and has not expanded or broadened in their perception of being able to witness things in the way that we begin to witness when we allow ourselves to open.
Right. That idea of allowing ourselves to open to the possibility of like another world beyond that which is fact and seen, right? So that really goes against the perhaps contemporary logical functioning that there's only fact and what you can see. So this idea of energy and intuition and all these beautiful things that you're speaking of are so foreign to so many, yet right there within our reach. So I picked up on something you said in what you just said there about the goddess speaking through you. It makes me think of your albums, which I mentioned we listen to a lot at home. They're like the most beautiful, mystical lullabies. Is that because it's a language that I don't recognize as such? Is that the goddess speaking through you? Can you tell me a bit about that? Is it light language?
Yeah, well, the language is universal language. I say universal because it speaks to our heart. It's the universal heart language. And there was a time when we actually spoke the same language. There was no separation in the languages. And the enunciations through the vowel sounds of A, E, A, O, U are the connectors. So basically, those are the unification in all languages that bring us together. And the consonants and the dialects and the way that we enunciate things are basically what create the word separation. And so, when we're growing up as a child, we're being domesticated. We're being domesticated through language, and we're being domesticated through nuances of what is appropriate, what's not appropriate. And so we're like this sponge that is just taking in all this information. And so when you spend a lot of time in nature or in dream time, what I like to call dream time, which is like in a shamanic trance or in a shamanic state, playing a drum or singing and really connecting to nature, you start to allow the frequency and the sound to come through, and then she sings and weaves through you. And it's quite interesting because when I sing, especially during the day, the birds will just get super loud, and it's almost like the elements breathe with you. And then a symphony begins to happen, and all of a sudden all of nature is alive and awake, and it's like listening to, it's like she can hear us, and it's like, and when we listen and we allow that to come through us, it's such a beautiful feeling. One of the favorite things that I have in the world is when I do my retreats with people, when they come, and when it's that first moment that they open their voice to the universal heart language, and you can feel it. It's different from gibberish. And I remember when I was, it was probably about 15 years ago, and I remember watching like 60 Minutes or something like that, and they talked about tongues. Remember how some people, they would be slain by the spirit and they'd go into this, kind of prayer, and they'd start speaking this tongues. Well, that would happen to me quite often. I was a reborn Christian for a while, and I would go into these states of ecstasy, and I would be speaking this universal language. And I remember them saying, this is God talking through you. And so as I started spending more time in nature, and I started to feel, I had watched this 60 Minutes show, and in the show it was talking about when we pray, in English that the frontal lobes is what activates. But when we pray in universal heart language, that the whole brain activates. And they did this whole test with EEG and, like showed the brain waves and what was happening in the brain. And I remember that always stuck with me, because sometimes we need the science to help us to, understand, that there is something actually happening inside of us. And so that's when I really understood and I really knew, because then I started working with other scientists. After I received my voice and I would speak this language, I would speak to other scientists, and they would share about this language, and they would share about, like, this one woman, Sherry Edwards, that I had had the opportunity to meet, and she lived in the Appalachian Mountains for most of her life and was hardly ever around any other humans besides her family. And so when she started to come out and be around people, she could smell and she could sense and she could hear tones that were missing, that she could tell if you had cancer. And so she could just sense if you had an illness or a disease, some kind of something that was going on. And she knew how to make the sound to heal that. And so she created these tone boxes that you could listen to, and your body would reharmonize to these things. So back, like 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, it was like I was learning about all of this fascinating stuff while my voice was awakening to these gifts. And so I was very fortunate to be able to be surrounded by a lot of science, actually, that and mysticism. So I was around master teachers and shamans and, all of these mystics that could defy, like just, you couldn't believe your eyes, the things that they could do in their ceremonies, rattles moving around, like all these different things, that were like, so like, what, pinching myself, going like, what's happening, and then the science aspect, that was explaining like all of this phenomenon. And so it really taught me a lot.
Well, and it's actually really great to speak to you coming from that background, because the science speaks to the skeptics, and the shamanism and the spiritual side speaks to all the intuitives and the empaths. So that's a really great representation of both sides of the coin, and makes you a very informed sound therapist as well. And that brings me to the sonic ascension tools that you create. I know over the years, like one of my most prized possessions, which is not here, it's in we have a place in France and it's there, is a custom drum that I ordered for you, where I chose the spirit animal and it was painted on. And I would go for walks. This place we have is in the middle of nowhere, and I would go for walks banging the drum around the land to kind of do healing work on the land. And that was so intuitive. I didn't really know why I was doing it or what I was doing, but when that drum arrived, I knew that's what I needed to do. And yeah, can you tell me a bit about the sonic ascension tools? And I'm assuming that the drums are a part of that as well.
Yeah, I have one here. This is my special drum that I have, and this is a Shipibo grandmother from Peru, and she actually had passed away, and she came to me in a dream, and she said, I want to continue to sing. And so I called the artist and I asked him if I could make a replica and to support his tribe, and he said yes. And so I had this one painted by an amazing artist in Bali, and she just sings, like she comes to life. And a lot of the instruments and the tools that we make, the crystal bowls, and we work with very amazing artists that really bring through the downloads of these transmissions, and then we activate them through different, the ceremony of their creation. And then we put like feathers and, and we just really pay a lot of attention to what we're creating, because we know that it has a spirit. We believe each instrument has a spirit and it has a purpose. And so when it's matched with its co-creator that it's meant to, it's like something comes alive and then they just know intuitively and they just start working with it. And it's actually in my Vedic astrology chart, which was quite interesting. I had a Vedic astrology chart, and they said you will make um, spirit totems for people. You will create crystalline and all these different, working with plants and medicine tools basically. And it's always what I've been drawn to. I come from Native American descent, and my father, he was really a hunter, and I remember just being devastated by the animals, and always making sure as a little girl that he did it the right way, and that and he would always teach me that everything needed to be utilized and nothing could be wasted. And so I grew up with this very sacred awareness of what it meant to really carry these medicine tools and how sacred they were. And so we work with those. I also have over here crystal bowls that we make. And
I was just going to ask you that. You clearly got my question without me having to say it. That's wonderful. How to interview a psychic. Send the questions. That is so beautiful. So tell me about that, because obviously you can't put that bowl down, can you? Or is it like a goblet?
It's a chalice. Yeah, it's a goblet. It's a little chalice. I call it the chalice of the Holy Grail. This one in particular was made for the birth of my granddaughter. And her name is Selena Lynn, and she came to me in a vision, in a dream, and she said she needed a bowl, and she needed a drum, and she needed all these tools for in a rattle. And she told me her totems, and she's so like that in real life. Like, she's so very like poignant, and so I made this one specially for her. So I use it a lot just to give it a lot of infusion and energy until she's able to play, because she's only 2 right now. But I've worked with crystal bowls for a very long time, and I loved the sounds. They had such a profound effect on my body, and I feel like I'm a crystalline being. I'm a crystalline healer. And so I've made, like, my first awakening was through making jewelry, and like, the stones speaking to me and the wisdom of the earth. So I've just been, like, just love crystals. And so when I first got introduced to the crystal bowls, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is it for me. And my voice sounds like a crystal bowl. So it was the perfect match, So at the time, the companies that I was wholesaling for, they couldn't really do what I wanted. They couldn't really put what I wanted into the bowls. And so I worked with the crystal tones bowls for quite a long time. And then the goddess appeared to me in a dream, and she said to me that it was time for me to create my own bowls. And I was like, what? Like, how? That's impossible, And sure enough, she brought all of the different avenues and outlets and the different manufacturers and things, like, literally to my door. The artists, like, it was just like everything flowed with such divine synchronicity. And it was so natural, and it's been something that many people around the world, they're carrying our chalices and they're working with them, and the same thing, they play them, and they say they have like these amazing experiences with people. Like, one man just called me today, and he said that he just listened to the bowl and he just instantly started to cry, and he said he felt like this deep grief leaving his body, and like all these things awake, and he's like, I have to have this bowl. So they have a very interesting effect on people, and for me, it's more, it just feels so touching to know, because we use bioscalar, which is Tesla technology. We infuse them, with different minerals and things that, I've been to Brazil. Like, I was just in Brazil last year picking up the Lemurian seed crystals, and, so it's like, it's very specific when we work with these, and we put so much intention, like with our artists and who we collaborate with, you know, that they're really on par with bringing through the frequencies that are wanting, you know. And I don't really do anything. The goddess basically tells me, like, you're going to work with this person and you need to put Tesla technology. I'm like, what's Tesla technology? You know, like, and then she's like, don't worry about it, I'll send you the person. And then, you know, the person, and the funny thing is that the doctor who was the Tesla technology that I'm supposed to work with, her name is Dr. Sandra Rose Michaels, and I'm Amma Sophia Rose. So it's like, just, you know, the woman who does the art, her name was Ania Sophia, you know, and I'm Amma Sophia. So it's just like, it's such a like synchronistic, it's almost like we pre-planned this, you know, before coming into this lifetime to create these together for this mission and this purpose. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that idea of sort of predestined soul contracts, what you just described there about people, sort of something from a past lifetime, people destined to find each other. Is that something you believe in? Sounds like it. Yes.
Well, I believe that there's a like resonance. So there's a frequency resonance, and we're all here to uplift each other for the same purpose and the mission, you know, of transformation, awakening, and evolution. And we all carry our part, you know. So even us connecting right now, you know, it's like whatever, you know, you're doing your service and your love and you're sharing it, you know, and then I have the opportunity to be on here, and so we support each other to rise.
Yes.
and and you know, without each other, you know, it makes it very difficult, you know. I mean, I'm in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, like, you know. You know, how is anybody going to hear about me, you know, out here? And so I just really feel like, you know, we have these beautiful soul contracts and we come from similar rays of frequency, and it's like we're drawn kind of, you know, together in certain ways, through that resonance and that knowingness. And um and and it's just amazing, like the synchronicities or the coincidences that bring us together. But when we realize that it's our souls that are aligning to that supreme light, you know, it's aligning. I remember my very first sound healing. It was so profound. I remember being a point of light, and it was all these points of light, like thousands and thousands and thousands, and we were gravitating, you know, towards this big point of light that others were like making it bigger and bigger and bigger. And I remember that when I touched as this point of light into this higher, you know, bigger point, you know, bigger light frequency, this sound came through. And as this sound came through, I was like, oh my gosh, that's all of us. You know, and it was like all of our energies. And when I've had, you know, Kundalini awakenings and third eye awakenings, I hear that sound. And so it's the sound of the universe. It's the sound of creation when the pineal and the pituitary open up. And it's this sound that's universal. It's a sound when we come in through the birthing canal, and like our neck and like the atlas point of our mouth of God, like comes in this certain motion. And it's this frequency that we hear when we're dying and we're leaving the body. You know, it's like, it's the same sound of the universe. And so I believe that when we hear each other or we feel each other, we see each other, sense, you know, there's just like this gravitational pull, you know, that we're all going to that same light, and we're all going to meet at that same point, which is our, you know, which is our Holy Spirit and our creation of co-creation of this existence.
Mm.
So.
Yeah, I like everything you just described. When you were talking about the third eye awakening, could you explain that a little bit for those who don't know what that means? I think most people listening will know, but just in case, it's quite good to go into that a tiny bit.
Yeah, well, like our energy, our Shakti, or our Kundalini energy sits at the base of our spine. And when we do things like breath work, or we listen sometimes to certain sounds or frequencies, or we do yoga, or there's different practices that we can do, the Kundalini begins to awaken, and these two serpents begin to go into a double helix, in our spinal column. Yeah. And when that double helix begins to happen, it begins to go through and kind of, go through all the different chakras. So a lot of people that have done medicine, they can feel like when ayahuasca comes on, it's like they drink the medicine and then all of a sudden they can feel the serpent, or they have this sensation of a serpent. And then if any of the chakras are blocked, even without medicine, it's like if any of your chakras are blocked, you will have a response because it's hitting on density or some kind of energy. And so there'll be pain, or there'll be a blockage. And so sometimes you have to cough it out, sometimes you have to throw it up, sometimes something is moving within that needs to be released, so the energy has a free flow. So in many different traditions, like for example, I whirl a lot, so I whirl like, Sufi whirling. That's one of my practices. And I notice when I'm not grounded and when my kundalini is shut down, like I'll get dizzy, or, it's like I have to practice so that the conduit is open, so keeping that channel open, the Sushumna open, really helps us to come into balance. And so when it's open, when we reach that state of openness, sometimes it happens by accident, and sometimes it happens, as progressively when we are working on it. But it will go through up to the third eye, the pineal, and then open up the crown, and then that's when you have an experience of samadhi, or go into a transcended state of bliss, or different things can happen. Sometimes if it happens unconsciously, like when I would go into these states of like speaking tongues and different things like that, there would be times where my kundalini would open and I'd get a little burn on the top of my head and at the base of my root. And I'd be like, what is that? But it was like my kundalini that was, and so some people experience other things, where if it happens too much and they don't understand, that like, that's why some people are afraid of their kundalini awakening, because they have like fried circuits, or they can have, mental things like start to happen. So it's not bad, it's something that happens very naturally. And I feel like people are going to be experiencing it more and more right now, because we're in the great time of awakening. The sun is blazing down on us. It's throwing us a lot of solar flares. We're being forced to cleanse our bodies. We're being forced to awaken whether we like it or not. And so it's just a natural thing that, it's our life force energy. We should be taught this, when we're little children, how to run our kundalini energy, how to navigate this body without frying or without burning out or without going into a psychosis. But we're not taught. We're taught to be afraid of it. We're taught to, not understand what it really is, or how to move it, or how to work with it. And so, this is the time now where the wisdom keepers are really, needing to share this information, because I feel like we're popping off left and right. We're just like opening left and right. And so, we need guidance. And I was so grateful to have a lot of guidance in my life when my kundalini, began to awaken.
And so I love what you're saying about how this sort of energy work should be taught to young people, so they can master their own energy rather than being hooked into, affected by all the many toxic energies out there in the world, and have an awareness of it. And I love the idea, the possibility. It's quite science fiction that as we move into the future, this might become a part of life skills taught to young people. And I also love what you said about how we are now in the great time of the awakening. So what does that mean to you? And as you have received much guidance and you are now an expert yourself, could you maybe like say a couple of things, one or two things that people could do at this time to support themselves at a time of great awakening, whether they are already feeling like they're waking up, or it's happening to them, or they're not? Like, yeah, some ideas what people could do.
Well, I wouldn't call myself an expert, because one that knows, that knows that we are always growing and learning.
Yes,
for sure.
good. Okay,
So,
good. You're
what
a
I use.
humble expert. I'm going to call you an expert, but yes, you're humble, and I love that. So
Thank you.
yeah, you're a
Yeah, what I
wise woman, wisdom keeper. Okay, we'll put it that way.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, what I recommend to people is to move the body to dance, to really do connected breathing. Really work with the vagus nerve is really important, like the rest and digest. Like that's one of the things that, as you know, as the kundalini is naturally rising in people, you know, it's like we need to learn how to get out of the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, and come more into a place of the rest and digest, which is the parasympathetic nervous system, so that we can actually heal our bodies. Because if we are constantly in that state of fight or flight, we're constantly in that state of, like, you know, hyper arousal, and we're like, you know, just in this panic state. When the Kundalini begins to arise, that's what creates the psychosis, because we're thinking too much. You know, it's like the Kundalini is like moving and everything, and we're just like, oh, what's happening to me? And fear, and, you know, we just start getting caught up in this tornado of illusions. And so meditation, really coming into a place of gardening, like that's super important right now, like really getting your hands in the earth. You know, limiting your time on the computer, you know, like if you're going to be on the computer, make it worth it, you know, like do things that are going to educate you in how to nurture and care for yourself, or be creative. To sing is very important, because that also stimulates the vagus nerve. When we tone, when we sing, when we dance, when we play, when we enjoy, riding a bike, when, you know, roller skating, like all of these different things, Tai Chi, Qigong, like all of these practices that we maybe not have had time to do, we have the opportunity to do now. And, you know, even just taking time, like after you eat, to lie down and breathe, you know, or sit down in a meditation and just take in, you know, I usually do the vagus nerve stimulation, which is like a 4 breath in, and you just count to 4, hold for 4, and then out for 8. And just doing that very simply, you know, especially after you've eaten. Because right now what's happening is that we've been completely overstimulated as a society. Just we're so inundated with sound pollution, you know, food pollution, pollution on every level, and mental pollution. You know, it's just like with Facebook and all of these different media things, you know, it's like we're constantly bombarded by emotion, movies, and, you know, all of this stuff. It's like we're so overstimulated, and our body doesn't have a chance to understand the natural rhythms of life, you know. So when you garden and, you know, you plant something, you actually begin to feel the living soil of the earth, and you get to see, like I can't just gobble this little seedling up, you know. You have to wait for it to grow, you have to wait for it to fruit, you have to wait for it to give you, you know, its fruits, which teaches us patience. It teaches us to slow down, and it also teaches us, like, to have a deep appreciation. When, you know, we snap our fingers and we have everything, you know, at the touch of a screen, or, you know, we can go and pop in and get things, we overconsume, you know, and we get overstimulated once again. So all of these addictive patterns happen. You know, it's like we get addicted to food, we get addicted to sugar, we get addicted to porn, we get addicted to, you know, all of these things. I mean, can you imagine, in the information age, we are bombarded to get everything within the snap of our finger.
Oh my gosh, it's true. It's so true. And as you're telling me that the most important thing to do is to slow down, I'm like, oh my gosh, and we're running out of time on this amazing podcast. And I'm like, slow down. No, but I have to cut it before we get cut off, because there is this kind of ending to our recording. Please tell me about what's coming up for you and what you're looking forward to and how you can help people with the bombardment of all of this noise.
So I'm working right now on a product actually, and it's going to be an online product because we're doing things virtually right now, and also because I want to reach more people. And it's going to be a sound breath alchemy. So it's all about the breath, the sound, and the alchemical movement. And so we're going to be working with the somatic nervous system. We're going to be working with sound and frequency and shamanic music that we're going to make specifically for the course, and then teach you a lot of different breath tools and breath techniques so that you can basically have the tools to awaken this aspect within yourself and become your own healer, because I feel like that's super important right now, that people have the empowerment within them. I'm also in July, hopefully I'll be able to have my sonic alchemy retreat, which is one of my favorite things to facilitate, and that'll be on July 2nd. If not, it'll be in September. I have a feeling I have a lot of people locally on the island and stuff, and in the nearby islands. So hopefully we'll be out of quarantine by then and be able to come and gather here. And if not, but I have the crystal technologies and stuff. Can I sing a little bit?
Yes,
I didn't.
please. Yes, please. Yes,
Okay.
please. Because I was going to say, and you've got the albums out that people can listen to, and they're super healing.
Yeah. And
Powerful.
I give those away for free, so I would love to be able to give you the link. You can go to my website, which is soniclovealchemy.com, and you can just sign up and you'll receive the albums for free, because it's
Amazing.
it's something that I just really want to share with everyone, because I feel like it just it was a gift that was given to me through the mother, and so I want to give it to others. So how long do we have? Do I have any time to
Yes,
sing?
yes. I'm also going to record you with another software in case it gets cut out on this Zoom that we're using, because I'm I'm very excited that you're going to do sound healing. I experienced a sound healing with you many years ago, and that's where I received a spirit animal. So that was a really cool and important experience for me too. So yes, please go for it, and maybe just give an introduction about what it is you're about to do.
So I'm going to sing the songs of Sophia, which is the Phi ratio, the Holy Spirit of Sophia, and I'm going to invoke the presence of heaven and earth, and connect us into our bodies through the sounds, the angelic tones and frequencies. Okay.
Thank
Indu sayangku yang
Thank you. That was so beautiful and soothing and a multi-sensory experience listening to you saying, because you've really, it's a physical feeling as well as a hearing, and your voice is out of this world. It's like, yeah, it's really fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I really hope that that has been included in our video session here, because yeah, it's beautiful with the crystal bowl, and I feel you come from the future. Like, and at the past at the same time. Like, it's amazing. I definitely feel like I'm speaking with an old soul who has somehow brought these technologies and then come to meet me here in the present. I really thank you for making time to talk to me today and sharing some of your wisdom. And yeah, thank you so much. And I look forward to when we meet again. Thank you so much, Amma Sophia Rose. Take care. Take care. Be well. Thank you.